Hi, it's Larry Herb, Xbox's Major Nelson. Welcome to the official Xbox podcast. We got a new look this week. We're doing things a little differently because we're in the studio. Rebecca's here. I'm here. We're in person. Welcome back to the West Coast, by the way.
Thank you. It's great to see you, Larry.
We're here. We are, of course, sitting in the corner would be Jeff, or maybe the other side. I don't know. But Jeff could not be here. He's on assignment.
Yep.
And there's a funny little story about why we're in studio, and I want to tell you. We about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking off the air after one of the shows, after one of the podcasts. I'm like, hey, Rebecca, you're like, hey, I'm going to be back home out here on the West Coast. We should get together, right?
Yeah.
And so we were talking, and Jeff's like, well, we need to do the show live. We need to do the show all in person in the studio. I'm like, okay. So I send the email off to the team here. We book the studio. We get the audio guy, the lighting guy, the hair and makeup guy that I never used. We got everybody in here. And then a few days later, Jeff's like, I need to travel. I've got an assignment to do. So
Yeah, that's okay. We miss you, Jeff, but I know he's very happy to be on his first business trip since, I think, 2019.
like 2 years since we've seen each other.
Yeah, it's been a very long time.
But I'm sure he'll be back next week or sometime in the future to talk about what he was doing. So I don't know where he is. I texted him and he sent me this. Can I show you this picture? Because I don't know. I can't share it with everybody because it may give it away. But this was the picture I got of him. So
that's not very helpful.
Yeah, so it's okay. There it is a little bit. Anyway, freeze frame.
It's basically him in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's him in the middle of nowhere with drinking a Topo Chico. So
maybe that's a hint.
There it is. We don't need to zoom in on that. Anyway, so welcome. What are you playing, by the way? You know, I know you've been traveling. You've had some things to do, but you know, you had a big week a couple weeks ago with Minecraft Live. What are you playing?
Yeah, after Minecraft Live, I took some time off. I've been traveling, came back home, visit my parents. I haven't had.
Whoa. You can't just say visit your parents and not talk about Pumbaa.
I know. Yes, it's very nice to see Pumbaa. I have missed him very much.
Right.
He's put on a few pounds since.
Really?
Yeah, since living with my parents.
He's on a COVID diet.
Yeah, they've been sending me photos, from the table, like, oh look, he's begging for food. We're giving him little scraps from breakfast and things like that. So it kind of
and little scraps for an animal. Pumbaa's only about this big, right?
Yeah, he was about 16, 17 pounds when he left New York, and now I think he's closer to 20. So.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been nice being home. Obviously haven't really been able to game too much. All I have is my work computer with me, but I did bring my Switch.
Right, you said you were going to do that.
Yeah, so there's some new content in Animal Crossing since the last time I played. It's been a while. It was a busy summer.
Did you get, did Tom Nook yell at you? Like you had weeds, or like a friend of mine who works on the PR team, he plays all the time, and apparently he went in after not playing it for like 6 months, and Tom Nook was complaining he had cockroaches.
Yeah, I have cockroaches all over my house now. It's a little unfortunate, but I'm trying to tidy up, get my island nice and ready because there's going to be a big Halloween event this weekend, and I'm very excited for it.
Okay, good. Are you a Halloween fan?
Yes, I love Halloween. Scary movies, all the Halloween foods. I actually have a very controversial opinion. I love candy corn.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I'm used to it. It's okay.
Why do you like that? All it is like, it's just like, it's solidified sugar, corn syrup.
Yeah. I don't know. It tastes good to me.
Okay.
It reminds me of my childhood. It's nostalgia.
I know. I'm not going to say anymore because I'll get accused of gatekeeping candy corn.
It's okay. What about you? What have you been playing? What have you been up to?
Let's see. Still churning away on Far Cry. Did some Back 4 Blood. What else have I been playing? I think that's pretty much. I mean, I'll have to check my stuff here, but that's really all I've had time for. We've had a lot of stuff. We had a big. I don't know how it was in New York or you were traveling. We had a little bit of weather here in the Northwest, and we lost power for a few days.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah,
okay.
So I was worried. It came back. It was just over the week. Of course, it was over the weekend when I had time to play.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of xCloud gaming on my phone, and in fact, we're going to be doing an interview with. Have you seen the Backbone?
Oh yes.
Yeah, is this which is an I don't have one with me, but I used my Backbone over the weekend to play some cloud games and do a little bit of Far Cry.
Very cool.
And in fact, we're going to get the inventor of the Backbone on this very show because he's got a very deep connection to Xbox. He's going to tell us about it.
Oh, that's great.
So we'll have that in the coming week. So anyway, I play a little bit of cloud gaming, which is great. And that's really about it. I mean, we're getting into the season with all the big releases.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, we've got Apex just did a big content drop this week, and we have an interview with them later on with Steven later on from the team. So we'll talk about that. Of course, Battlefield's coming out. Halo. We saw some Halo campaign trailer this week, which
Very
looked
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
I know you're excited about Halo.
Yeah, I'm a big Halo fangirl. I'm very excited. So everyone should check the video out. It's on the Xbox YouTube page.
Yeah.
It's the Halo campaign overview. It shows you a little bit of the new open world called Zeta Halo. There's the new AI called the Weapon, who's supposed to destroy Cortana. Yikes.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I've been a little curious with the direction they've taken Cortana in with the last few Halo games.
Right.
I'm curious to see how it all kind of comes together in the campaign, though. So I'm gonna stay neutral for now.
I miss, I haven't seen Jen Taylor, the voice of Cortana. I haven't seen her in so many years.
Yeah.
She's so lovely. She's such a great talent, and it's always great. I should get her on the show.
Yeah.
Think about that. Maybe.
Honestly, the voice talent, the music in Halo is just so
yeah. It's just one of those things that you kind of settle in, and it just feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, we got that coming up. Halo's, that's coming up in December. It's almost here, a little bit over a month away.
Yeah, I know there are quite a few folks on the team who are bracing themselves for launch.
Well, there's also not only that, but there's a lot of people on the team. Our team works on that. We support that title.
Yeah.
Right. I know. And we may be, because it's such a big launch, we may be called in to help. I mean, we'll help in we all have our own superpowers. You have some, I have some. I don't know if I have any. Jeff has apparently being in the desert with a Topo Chico. So we all have our superpowers. We're going to pitch in, all hands on deck for that. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's kind of what we're playing. But yeah, we're kind of going through there. How's New York?
New York's been treating me well. Sorry to hear about the unfortunate weather here, but it's actually been pretty nice in New York.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was on my way into the studio here and I was talking to my sister who lives in Rhode Island, and they didn't have, she works in education. They didn't have school today because of weather. So I think whatever happened here, the cyclone bomb, maybe it's now bombing out to the East Coast now. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there were quite a few rainstorms this summer, leftover like hurricane kind of remnants coming to New York. So yeah, it's been kind of a tough year weather-wise, but hopefully it'll be a nice and warm winter.
Was it a bumpy flight out here?
Yeah, a little bit actually, which really freaks me out. But
well, of course
it's okay.
It does. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Whew. Anyway, so we've got some cool stuff coming up here. Should we roll the interview? I mean, I don't know if we want to do that yet. We can talk about your travels.
No, it's okay. Yeah, let's go to the interview.
Yeah. So Steve, thanks for joining us. Always great to have you back on the show.
Thanks very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I love talking Apex. I love talking to the team from Respawn, and nobody better than the team director at Respawn yourself. Tell us about some of the news that you guys have this week, because it's pretty good stuff.
It is. It's a big season. We're really excited for Escape to come out. As we've done in the last few seasons around this time of the year, it's the time where we launch our new big map for Battle Royale. So a lot goes into that. There's a lot of dev time that goes into building that, and we're very excited to get everyone playing it. And can't wait.
It's really, I mean, we've got the new update, we've got the new map, you have a new legend, you have some new weapons. I mean, you kind of went through and ticked all the boxes for everybody. Why don't you, for those folks that maybe didn't catch all your streams and all the announcements, why don't you kind of do a quick little recap for us? And I've got some screenshots so we can kind of roll through those as well.
Sure, absolutely. So, like I said, the big marquee item this season is escaping to our new map, which is Storm Point, a tropical beach island, but not quite as relaxing as you would expect, given that setting. Quite moody and full of lot of danger and mystery. So, I think there's a lot to uncover in there. We were just talking about how long it took everyone to find all the Easter eggs in some of the previous maps, which was over a year. So we're excited to see if everyone can find everything in this map.
And I don't know, but I'm pretty sure, and they still haven't found them all in the current maps, right? Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, and then the next big thing, we've actually drawn a lot from Titanfall this season. So we've got our legend Ash, who's obviously a Titanfall favorite, as a boss from Titanfall 2. So she joins the games as our new legend. And then on the weapons side, we've also brought another Titanfall favorite in the Car SMG. So something that was pretty flexible and, a pretty flexible weapon back in the day that had a lot of, I think, strong opinions associated to it one way or another.
Right.
And so we've kind of modified both Ash and the Car to fit into Apex. And those are really the three marquee elements of this season of Scape.
It's great to see the continued work you guys are doing, and you're having such lovely success with Apex. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was talking to some folks at the office about how, you guys just kind of dropped it out of the middle of nowhere when you launched a few years ago. And it was one of those things that just took over the internet, and everyone was like, wait a minute, what is this? And then it just took off from there. And it was just so great to see the new style of gameplay. And it was evolutionary. As a fan of Titanfall, I've known Vince and a lot of folks and you at the studio for a long time. And it's great to see how you've evolved the gameplay and working with the community. Tell us a little bit about how you develop the map, and what were some of the things you're like, oh, we have to have this, because I was so bummed out when, on some of the other maps you had, the train wasn't running anymore and things like that. So tell us about some of the learnings that you brought into the new map.
100%. Yeah, like you said, when we dropped the game, it was a surprise to everybody, and it was a surprise to us in terms of the reception that the game had. And so we've really been, trying to catch up to the community, and that's really the defining point with Stormpoint is the first map that we actually started developing after we had collected a lot of the experience from the previous maps, from Kings Canyon, from World's Edge. And so rather than those already being in development, as we were learning these things, we had already a big checklist of things that we knew we wanted to try out to try and improve on going into Stormpoint. So Stormpoint is the biggest kind of reimagining of what a map can be in Apex. And there's a few things that kind of go into that. One, it's the largest map that we've launched to date. Mm-hmm. It's about 15% bigger than World's Edge, which was our previous largest map. And probably the main thing that we were really addressing, that we were learning from our previous maps, there's a lot of little tiny things, but the big thing was how players move through the map and how third partying is a part of that experience. So there's some key changes that we've made. Things like you won't find redeploy balloons in this map. Okay. Instead, we've got gravity cannons. In terms of how we laid out each POI and how we constructed the layout for that and the general size of that and the amount of squads that can be supported on those, we were trying to avoid the skull towns or anything like that where we know everybody's going to drop in that one location. So
now, when you guys are designing the maps, I remember, because I've worked with a lot of different multiplayer game designers, you kind of want to have a choke point, but you don't want to have you don't want it to be too choke, but not too open. So people are like, where is everybody? Right? It feels empty. So there's a real fine balance that you have to walk as when you're designing these maps, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely design choke points into the map, but you don't want them to be, in the wrong places. And one of the things that we found with some of our other maps was that the more centralized those choke points become due to the nature of the ring and how that closes down, those just become that much more critical. So you'll notice when you go to Stormpoint, there aren't any major named POIs directly into the center of the map. Everything has been actually spread out so that you're actually rotating around the center, and you're never actually, you can just go straight to the center and hold that point. Yeah,
we can kind of see a little bit of it right here, and you got a little bit of a sense for what the map is at this angle. Maybe not the whole thing, but I totally get what you're saying. It's interesting.
Yeah. Another thing is just some of those major POIs. We know that some POIs are going to draw more people off the drop than others. And there's certain things that kind of influence that. And so rather than have the typical one or two that we've seen in our previous maps, we actually distributed that amongst 4 that were kind of evenly spaced and paced throughout the map. So we think that you're still going to get those hot drops. You're still going to get those kind of spicy moments off the go, but it's going to be, there's going to be more of them, so it's not going to be as intense. Another thing about how we designed the POIs was that there's more options. So you drop to a POI, you see that there's other squads dropping in that area, you're going to have options. It's they're spread out in terms of the loot distribution within a POI, but we also have these kind of unnamed towns that we've put scattered next to the major POIs, so that if you're dropping in last second, you need to make a detour, you can still drop into these other areas, still get high loot, and then create a combat front between the major POI and the minor POI and have a fair fight of it, rather than just see who gets to the loot first. So those are some of the big pieces.
Now I got to ask a question here, because one of the things we've seen in some of the previous maps is there's wildlife. There's some wildlife that's natural to the map. Now, who
Yes.
thought it was a good idea to put spiders in for those people afraid of spiders? Because there's spiders in this map.
Absolutely. So that's definitely been a point of contention, even internally. It's one of those things is unless you're impacted by it, you don't really know what's going to happen. But that's one of the decisions. That's one of the reasons why we made them optional. So yes, wildlife is another big piece of this map, both in prowlers and in the spiders. But they won't. We've been very careful about how we've introduced them to the space. We definitely wanted them there for the thematic kind of influence they have. We wanted the island to feel very like a Jurassic Park, full of mysteries, full of adventure, and you can't have adventure without danger. So that's where the wildlife come into this. And like I said before, you're going to opt into it. There are going to be cases where you're going to turn a corner, you might run into a prowler nest, you might not expect that, or you might run into another squad that's engaging with wildlife. But if you're moving through the map, it's really up to you in terms of how you interact with the prowler nest or how you interact with the spider eggs. And, if you choose not to do that, you don't have to. We've also been really careful about how we've put our ring placement relative to them. So the idea is that we want to avoid getting to that final circle and having kind of chaos ensue because of the wildlife is going after everybody in that final circle. So you'll notice that the rings never close directly over any of the wildlife. They can be near it, they can be dragged, into that space, but they can't. They won't be there by default.
Yeah. If wildlife, then no ring close, or whatever the if-then statement is there in the logic.
That's right.
You'll also notice. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to mention one last thing. You'll also notice about the way that the map is laid out in terms of its topography. It's got this mountain range on one side, and it goes down to the water, and it's kind of broken up with a series of small islands. But there's a very conscious decision to make that a slope going from the north to the south. So as you approach the POIs, it's actually a little bit different as well in terms of you're kind of choosing, depending on where you land on the map, to either move downhill or uphill. And we know that there's different advantages and disadvantages, also layering in the different legend abilities about how you attack a POI, whether you're going uphill or downhill. So that's another interesting element that we kind of layered in there.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the gravity cannons. Why have you guys used this mechanic versus previously we've had the balloons? You're just finding, does this allow people to move around the map quicker? Or tell us a little bit about the thought behind that.
Yeah, so that was a very, very specific decision that we tried a couple different versions of before we landed on the gravity cannon. And really the idea there was that one of the things that we get out of the redeploy balloons is obviously being able to move from POI to POI quickly. Yep. We needed to maintain that going into Stormpoint, especially given that it's the largest map that we've made yet. So we knew we needed a fast travel, but with the redeploy balloons, it really gives you a lot of options to drop in and third-party different squads in POIs, and really gives you a lot of options in terms of whether you drop on, directly behind them, directly on them, on a rooftop where you can hide. And so it was really exacerbating that third-party challenge that we had in the game at the time. So we decided that we were going to add the gravity cannons because particularly it still gives you a really fun and exciting way to move around the map fast, but it's more controlled in terms of we know exactly where the launch points are, we know where the end points are. We give you some flexibility of movement in that so that you don't fall into a trap when you're landing on the other side, but we know which direction you're going to be moving in. And so we can design around that. We can place cover around that. We can place our POIs strategically around that. And so we feel that it'll be a much healthier way of moving around the map quickly. We've also added, because like I said, there is very different topography, whether you're on the mountain side, north side of the map, or you're on the water side, south side of the map. So we've got tridents in this map as well, like we do on Olympus. So you'll be able to use those to move around the map as well.
All right. Now we talked about the map. We're going to talk about your new hero, your new legend, because, Ash is a familiar face, as you said, but tell us about some of Ash's abilities, because I was reading about them and they look very strategic. I want to talk about them.
Yes. I mean, Ash was a really fun character for us, a really fun challenge for us to bring to the game. Ash was something, being a character from Titanfall, a lot of the team was very passionate about getting her into the game. And even before we knew what the kit was going to be, we had really decided that we need to figure out a way to make Ash a legend in
Yeah.
the game, and that happened, all the way. That goes all the way back to season 5, where when we did the Broken Ghost quest line, and at that point we knew we were going to bring her to the game. So in terms of how we built the kit out, we wanted to make sure that we were drawing from who Ash was from Titanfall. And so we really looked at the Ronin Titan as kind of the inspiration for her kit. And we wanted to make sure that it drew from that, but we didn't want it to be the same. We also knew that Ash was a very aggressive character, so there was no question about it. She wasn't going to be a recon character. She wasn't going to be defensive. She was going to be aggressive. She was going to be an assault character. So with that in mind, we started looking at kind of, well, how could that Ronin kit fit into this? And we tried a few things, but pushing and being aggressive was always the core of her kit. So where we landed was this idea of a kit that could really hone in on where the opponents were and go and push after them, and then push inside of combat. So her passive is called Mark for Death.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the ability to see death boxes on the minimap. So anytime anybody gets eliminated, you'd be able to see where those death boxes are for a certain amount of time. If you go up to a death box, you can kind of take it one step further, and you can use kind of a custom version of a data knife that she can put into the death box and then ping where the opponent that took out that death box or created the death box is on the map.
Interesting.
You can do that only once per death box, so you can't just constantly ping it and kind of figure out where they are.
Right.
And it doesn't track them in any way, but you kind of get an idea of, okay, you find a death box, you ping it, or you use your passive on it, and then you can figure out your next direction, your next heading to go and find the next squad.
Yeah, kind of give you a snapshot of like, maybe you should go in this direction. Got it.
That's right. Cool. Yeah. So that kind of gets her on the path to finding another squads, because fighting is what she does. She's, like I said, she's a very aggressive character.
Yep.
And that takes us to the kind of, the combination between her tactical and her ultimate. Her tactical is called Arc Snare. Mm-hmm. And we tried a few different versions of this, but where we landed was that she throws out a projectile that's kind of slow moving. In the idea there, so that players can see it coming. They're never going to be surprised by this, because once it hits an area or hits an opponent, it'll actually snare them to the ground, and it'll tether them, and they'll be stuck in that area. You can still move around. You're not slowed or anything like that, but you can't move outside of that radius of the snare for a certain time. If you want to get out, you do have the option of pushing against it, but as you push against it, you'll start to get resistance in terms of your movement. Yep. But eventually you'll break through and you'll snap it. So that's in terms of just locking down her opponents and being able to know where they're going to go so that she can position. And her kit is really about positioning, and that kind of leads into the ultimate, which we call Phase Breach. And it's kind of a one-way portal that you can, a lot of people compared it to Ash's ultimate, but it's very different, and it's used in a very different way. Basically, you select a location, and you can create a portal between your current location and that location, to which you teleport fairly quickly, but it's one way in direction. So you can go through, it stays open for a little while so your squad can follow you behind, but it's really about being able to relocate your position in the middle of combat quickly.
So we should think of it different. We need to think of it differently than Wraiths, right?
It's very different than Wraiths, in that Wraiths, you turn it on, and then Wraith has a lot of articulation and a lot of reaction that can happen once you're in there.
Yep.
And you can decide where you want it to go, and then you can come back and forth. And if you felt like you created a space that was not a good position to create a portal to, you can always come back and defend that position.
Yep.
Not so with Ash. With Ash, once you're in, you're committed, and you've got to go from there. So like I said, she's, that's both her strength and her weakness, is that she's very aggressive, and she can bridge the gap very quickly between her and her opponents, and she can lock them down. But if she kind of bites off more than she can chew, then she's got no way to back out. So you got to be kind of confident, which is in line with her character in terms of her personality and who she is as well.
Awesome. Well, you talked about the Car SMG, so I'll let people play around with that. It's a pretty amazing weapon for those folks from the Titanfall who played Titanfall. Tell us a little bit about the new battle pass that you have lined up.
Yeah, so like always, we've got a brand new battle pass full of new content that comes along with a bunch of challenges. In fact, we'll have more challenges and more events that feed into the challenges. As you've been seeing, we've been increasing that season to season. So the same goes here with the Season and Escape. And it's going to feed both into arenas and into Battle Royale. So regardless of which way you like to play, you're going to be able to unlock content in that battle pass.
All right, so we've seen the map, we have the new hero, we got the weapon, we got your battle pass. When can people get their hands on some of this new stuff? That's the next question.
Yeah, absolutely. November 2nd, that's when it drops. Really excited to see everybody jump in at that point. And I'll definitely be playing, so hope to see everybody there.
Looking forward to that, checking everything out. Listen, Steven, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. You're the team director at Respawn. Keep up the great work. Have a great holiday, and we'll have you back on again sometime, all right?
Thanks very much. Can't wait.
Ash is from Apex Legends. Of course, he's in Apex Legends, but he's from Titanfall 2. Ash is one of the characters from Titanfall 2.
Oh, makes sense.
Because they've got everything's all
Respawn.
kind of interconnected. Did you play Titanfall back in the day?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Wasn't that great?
It was kind of game-changing, pun not intended, but
Right.
yeah, it was amazing.
Stand by for Titanfall and just having that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first games I played that really had like the wall running also.
Yep.
I know, and then just the feeling of like crushing a Titan, like destroying one.
Pulling the
Pretty amazing.
battery out and just
Yeah.
boom. Yeah,
I did try Apex Legends a few times.
Right.
It just didn't really catch on. I feel like I had a bunch of other things I
Well,
was
it's funny
playing at
because
that
I was
point.
thinking about, we didn't talk about this at the beginning of the show, but I since I didn't have power this weekend and I did have my phone and my tablet, I binged Squid Game.
Oh yeah.
So did you finish it?
Yeah, I have.
So, spoiler, we're going to talk a little bit about Squid Game before we get to the news. It's funny because I watched Squid Game, and I'm sure a lot of gaming folks did, people that watch the show or listen to the podcast. And I was like, okay, it's Battle Royale, right?
I know. Yeah.
As gamers, we've been used to this forever.
Yeah.
What did you think of it? Spoilers.
I really liked it. I watched it with my best friend who hasn't watched a lot of Korean entertainment before, and so there were some like small kind of cultural nuances.
Tell me about that because you've got a Korean background. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So like for example, I can't remember the exact words in Korean, but like the song. I don't think this is not a spoiler, but so they play Red Light, Green Light, which I think we all generally probably played as a kid, right?
Right. Where red light is you have to stop, green light you get to go, and you have to go somewhere. Somebody's calling out red light. But
the girl, the statue, the really famous girl that everyone knows from Squid Game, the song that she chants isn't actually saying red light, green light, but that's what the captions say. It's I can't remember the phrase in Korean, but it basically says like the hibiscus flower is like blooming, or some kind of flower is blooming. It's like the national flower,
right?
And so it's like something to say like the flower is blooming, like get ready to go,
right?
And then there are just like a bunch of other times throughout the show where the captions are like not quite what they're actually saying in Korean.
Right.
I'm not fluent, but I can pick up at least like a few pieces.
Right.
I did think like, no, I kind of told my friend, it was like, once you've seen one kind of psycho energy, like Korean form of entertainment, like Parasite or Train to Busan, like,
right.
You kind of get the gist of where it's going. Like it's going to be pretty dark,
right.
But I thought it was interesting that, it is a battle royale sort of
right.
Setup.
That's the background story in the game.
Yeah. Oh, there's one thing I want to say. I'm not sure if it's a spoiler, but basically it's kind of optional. So I think it kind of reflects like I mean, you've probably seen a lot of coverage around the kind of growing, like, I guess the gap, the inequality gap in Korea these days,
sure.
household debt, many places.
Yeah.
So I thought it was an interesting take and like kind of way to bring up that conversation.
Right.
So
yeah,
cool.
I enjoyed it. It's funny because I started watching it, and I was about maybe 5 minutes in, and for some reason when I brought up Netflix, it gave me the default of the English dubbed version.
Oh, interesting.
And maybe I said so. Anyway, I was like, I can't do this. So because I really wanted to watch the Korean language delivery
so
with
you can hear the
English
actors
exactly, because part of acting is not just your physical; it's your voice.
Mm-hmm.
As I hit my microphone, so I just like I can't do it. So I changed it over and I watched the whole thing. But the only thing that really just struck me as peculiar, and we're not going to talk about the story too much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe this is a little bit of spoiler, but there's certain English-speaking characters that appear later on.
Mm-hmm.
Their delivery was so cardboard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was.
Gee, that was funny, wasn't it? Right?
It was very campy. Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was that kind of a little bit of broke the fourth wall for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, the long story short was Battle Royale, and I was like, okay,
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I mean, maybe this is just me speculating. I think that maybe just like East. I know that in a lot of like Western cinema, Western culture, like Eastern characters and culture kind of get exaggerated a lot of the time. So maybe it's something a little bit similar where,
which
you
is the
know, in
reverse.
the East, like they're kind of exaggering these, you know,
Right.
like Western characters
Western
and
characters.
European folks. So
Right, yeah,
it's kind
you're
of-
right. I
kind
mean,
of
when you watch
interesting.
some like anime from the East, it's like it's always over the top. Ah! Right?
Yeah, like the buff German character is always like really big or
Right.
something. Yeah.
right. So, but yeah, I mean, there's certain things that translate that you know that there's an Eastern view of the West and the Western view of the East, whatever. But anyway, I the long story short was, and this isn't too much of a spoiler, is that you're right. I just as a gamer, I was like, okay, this is just a battle royale, right?
Yeah.
What I wish that, and maybe they'll do, and this is a free one. You know, what I really wish is that we saw a little bit somebody who is more used to video games in the battle royale way to introduce that into a version of the Squid Game. Do you know what I mean? So, because it looked like those characters, and I don't want to judge, but I guess I will. Is that some of those characters perhaps haven't played battle royale video games? That's what I'm saying. Is I wish we saw somebody in there who was like, okay, I figured this out. Now,
Yeah.
granted, it's wildly different. You know, the games are wildly different. I don't want, again,
Yeah.
to your point, I don't
Like
want
a couple characters who kind of understood what was going on
Right.
and like took advantage of that.
Right.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. That could make sense.
Right,
yeah.
right. You know, it's who they come
Yeah.
from.
There are a lot of gamers in Korea. Someone should have understood
Right.
what was going on.
right.
Yeah.
There sure are. But I also really enjoyed the brief moments that we saw native Korea,
Yeah.
because I had the opportunity to go there for a few days a week before the pandemic,
Oh, wow.
and I loved it. I mean, I've always loved a lot of I love Japan is one of my favorite places. When I went to Seoul, it was so beautiful and clean, and the people were so lovely, and the food was just amazing.
Yeah.
But I love seeing those brief glimpses. You've been.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I love seeing Korean entertainment pop up in like Western settings more. Like, you know, Parasite obviously was so huge.
That was one film that I know there's this whole, and if Jeff was here, he would go on and on about
Yeah, he would.
K-dramas, which I really
Yeah.
don't know that much about Korean dramas. But I loved Parasite just because I loved it. It just had a very Hitchcockian kind of angle, and maybe it's a spoiler because it's a few years old. We don't want to give too much away, but I love that. That's really going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It just goes zigs and zags and zigs and zags.
Yeah, there are a lot of really good Korean movies. Like Old Boy is another really popular one. Old Boy was adapted into an English-speaking film too. I highly recommend checking it out.
Old
But
Boy,
maybe
okay.
watch it. Like,
Is it on Netflix or is it streamable?
it should be. It's pretty out there.
Okay.
There's a Korean version, and then there's an I think it's Josh Brolin. I want to say is the lead in the.
Oh, he's in Dune.
Josh Brolin is.
Isn't he, or one of the Brolins isn't he? I don't know. Maybe
I'm not sure.
kidding myself.
I haven't seen Dune yet. Don't spoil it for
okay.
me.
Okay. What are some of the hallmarks that you know of? And we're getting into a film side.
Yeah.
Of Korean dramas or Korean film from where you sit. Somebody who lives in America but understands Korean culture.
Well,
Because I don't.
I think one thing that's one like cultural difference that's really interesting is that like between I think that in a lot of like American conflict or in like American like entertainment, the characters are very, I think just in general, like Americans and maybe like just Westerners in general are very forthcoming about how they feel and what they know. It's like if you know something, then, you know, like something like big or a secret, like you kind of tell someone or you accuse them of it, right? But and we saw this in Squid Game too with the main character. He discovers something that's kind of a big deal at the beginning, but he never says anything. Do you
Right.
remember what I'm talking
right.
about?
Yes, I do.
And I think that's part of like I think Asian culture is not being so transparent, being a little bit more like hidden with how you're feeling
Are you
about
hidden
things.
because you don't know? This is such a bizarre.
I know, sorry, this is a very big tangent.
But do you think they're hidden because they're just so reserved they don't want to share it, or what's the? I mean, I don't expect you to know as an expert, but
No,
I'm just
it's
wondering.
okay.
It's fascinating.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I guess it's just not in, at least like from my experience with Koreans, like it's just not you're just not super like confrontational about
Sure.
things. So like even with like my family, when if my mom doesn't like something that one of my aunts does, like she won't really say anything to
But
them.
she has
She'll tell me, but
But she has
you
no
know?
problem dropping into the YouTube comments.
Liking YouTube comments.
We're
Yeah,
telling you right.
it's a little bit different, but yeah, I don't know. It's just one like kind of small cultural nuance. So I think it's interesting as like a Westerner to be watching something like Squid Game and being like, why aren't you saying something? Why aren't you doing that? But
Right.
then it kind of lends its way to the conflict and the way that the story is going.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
I don't know.
so Squid Game, I watched it. It was-
Highly recommend.
If you,
Yeah.
if you like battle royales, like if you play battle royale games, then
Mm-hmm.
check it out. I mean, it's a lot of people are talking about Squid Game. All right,
Yeah.
here we go. All right, we got to talk about games. Well, we have been talking a little bit about games, but we have some gaming news. What do you got there?
Yeah, there actually isn't that much this week.
Okay, we can close. No, we got a few
just kidding.
things.
So one piece of news that's near and dear to my heart: Minecraft Dungeons Spookier Fall event. It's still going on. It's kind of our Halloween-ish fall event, taking place until Tuesday, November 2nd. So recommend checking it out this weekend. There are a lot of limited time items and different like achievements that you can get. We also have Age of Empires
Yes.
launching. I think it launched yesterday by the time this airs.
Right.
Yeah, so that is, I believe, Xbox Game Pass for PC, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, Microsoft Store, Steam. Oh, I hope I'm not forgetting anything. But there's also a minimum spec version of Age of Empires that's launching. So if you're on an older device, you could probably check it out. So I thought it was pretty cool that the developers wanted to make it a little bit more accessible.
Did you see what the Age team did? They released the video earlier this week. They built a trebuchet.
Oh no, I didn't see it.
It is bananas. It's over on the Xbox YouTube channel. I mean, I can kind of show you a little bit of it here. Oh,
Okay.
that's Charlie. That's Charlie who's done some stuff with us. So she's there. They've actually built a trebuchet, and I mean, I would
Like in real life.
yes, in real life.
Okay, that's cool.
And they're kind of showing it here, and they're anyway because that's a big part of Age of Empires.
Is that on the Xbox YouTube?
Yep, sure
Nice.
is.
Very
Go
cool.
Check that out.
All
And
right,
our
so-
good friend Charlie, who's been on the show before, she is hosting a video about that. So,
Very cool.
So go check that out. Anyway, keep going on. Age of Empires.
No, that's it. Honestly,
Did you
that's
play a lot when you were young? Age of Empires.
I didn't actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What were you doing? What were you playing on? Because I remember you shared. I don't think you shared it publicly, but I've seen the picture of you when you were a little girl sitting in front of the PC. With
Yeah.
your friend. You had a friend with you or something, right?
Yeah, with my dad's PC. So I think that was where I first started playing games. Was my dad would get like a custom PC from some guy,
Right.
a few miles away, and that guy would always put like Medal of Honor or Call of Duty.
Okay, so wow.
Or like the very very early versions.
Sure.
And so those were some of the first games I played on PC. So it was usually shooters. I think as I got older, a little bit older, I graduated to like Star Wars Battlefront, and that was when I was very heavy in my Star Wars phase. So
Right. You're still in the heavy in a Star Wars phase, aren't
yeah.
you?
yeah, I'm pretty into it. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I grew up with it. I mean, who hasn't grown up with Star Wars? Who doesn't love?
I guess
So,
everyone, yeah.
when you're asked that question, are you Star Wars or Star Trek?
I do really appreciate both. I
do too.
I love anything with star in the title generally. Like
Okay.
I also really love. I've already talked about Battlestar Galactica.
Well, don't watch Star 80 then. It's a bad movie from the 80s.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one. Okay, I'll check it out.
Whew. No, don't. Anyway, here we go.
Yeah. So not a ton of news this week, but Age of Empires, definitely check out that Trebuchet video on the YouTube channel. While you're there, also check out the Halo Infinite campaign overview. It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's a nice 6-minute watch. So yeah, that's just about it.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to wrap the show up here. Jeff will be back next week, I hope. Hopefully. Well, we're not going to be in studio because you're going to be back in New
Yeah,
York.
I'll be back.
So we'll be back in our individual home studios. But did you see this? Our marketing team teamed up with EA Marketing for this Battlefield controller. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I saw it.
So
It's pretty
if you missed it earlier this week, of course, Battlefield 2042 coming to Xbox, next month. It looks and plays great. But the teams teamed up with our industrial hardware team that designs our. I don't have a controller here, but they design our hardware. The Xbox Series X and the S. And our controllers, and they thought about this. They were posed the question: what would gaming be like in 2042? When Battlefield 2042, see what we did there? Anyway, so they released this cheeky video. What you're about to see, we're going to roll it here because we're going to end the show and we're going to wrap it up with this. You're seeing everything you see here is not real. Okay, this is just they just had a little bit
Are
of
you
fun.
sure? No.
No, stop. Just they had a little bit of fun and apparently quite a bit of budget. So they put together this video. We figured we'd leave you with that, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
play it on Xbox Series X and S.